Hi, Roy here, and welcome to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garton, and happy 250th anniversary of the good old US of A. And on this podcast, we're going to kind of take a little bit of a deep dive into the reasoning for our history, for our 250th anniversary of our country, and how certain things today apply to how our founding fathers basically constructed the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, etc., etc., etc. But before we do that, of course, we got to get into our news that I love to do here on this podcast. So let's go ahead and get started on that. The first thing that we need to, of course, kind of get into is the Iranian conflict update and what is going on. So indirect U.S.-Iran talks in Qatar have yielded positive progress regarding the implementation of the mid-June interim agreement. And as you're well aware of, the ceasefire has been violated several times. But regarding the implementation of a mid-June interim agreement, however, there has been tensions, as you're well aware of, and they are remaining high as Iran rejected some U.S. intervention in the Strait of Hormuz and threatened powerful responses to recent threats against Supreme Leader Khamenei. So key developments that have included negotiations. U.S. envoys and Iranian representatives have traveled to Qatar to negotiate via, the mediators. But the main thing that has been involved with all this, of course, is right there, the Strait of Hormuz. We got to keep the oil flowing. And Iran has taken back control of the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, we got to halt our military operations, which we kind of have, oil export waivers, and releasing, of course, blocked assets, which we have agreed to do. So Iran, though, maintains that it does control the strait, warning that both the U.S. and Israel against interference. So Iran has rejected U.S. military roles in the corridor and stated it would not begin final comprehensive peace talks until the interim deal's initial provisions are fully implemented. And Iran officials have lodged a formal protest at the UN against Israel over threats directed at the supreme leader. So what's going on with all this, of course, is our own internal conflicts among who is doing what. Vice President Vance's opposition to the Iran war was unique among President Trump's advisors and ultimately has hurt his relationship with the commander-in-chief. Vance was the only one who really vocally has taken issue with this and with Donald Trump. And it has irritated Trump to the point it may cost Vance with Trump and, come to the 2028 Republican elections of who's going to be the candidate. But he was the only person who has really kind of sort of rattled the cages. Now, some other things have been going on. There were other advisors who did make cases against this. We should note that Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane did lay out the scenarios for what could happen with the munitions depletions, which we have been experiencing, which clearly states that the United States has seen in a real way, despite the fact that the administration keeps insisting otherwise. And so that has been going on as well with all of this, with our dispute with Iran. And, of course, Iran is accusing U.S. of politicizing all this, including the World Cup, as tensions over diplomacy and sanctions have grown. Nuclear issues and the Gulf security continue to collide, and President Donald Trump is warning gasoline retailers to cut prices before July 4th. And, of course, July 4th is already here. And, yes, prices have slid a little bit. It's still not anywhere near where it was last year at this time. We're basically still looking at about a 60 cents per gallon increase on fuel. So it's going to take a while for it to get back to those levels, ladies and gentlemen. There's no question about it, because we got to restore our reserves here in the United States. We have totally depleted our strategic gasoline reserves here that we typically keep during this Gulf crisis. And, of course, Iran is still going on and on over $6 billion in frozen assets. And Tehran does insist interim deal terms must be implemented before final talks do begin. Shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is rebounding since the last little dispute we had on those attacks. So, again, it's kind of keeping things going on here. Some other news that has been going on that we need to kind of discuss, of course, is the recent Supreme Court rulings. Donald Trump didn't get everything that he wanted, but the guy did get a few things. So some of the biggest Supreme Court cases that have included were, of course, the terrorists, the birthright to citizenship, and the attempted firing of Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. But he also emerged from the term with some even greater power. His immigration crackdown was largely upheld. His call to redistrict for partisan advantage marched ahead, with his ability to control federal regulatory agencies expanded dramatically when the court overturned a 90-year-old precedent. And the court's conservative majority also seemed willing to look past Trump's invocation of a racial bias and boundary-pushing moves and to hand down decisions in line with its own conception of a powerful presidency. The conservative majority seems fully behind the unitary executive theory, the court's ruling on Monday, this past Monday, which gave the president effective control over independent regulatory agencies by allowing him to fire their leaders at will. Several federal laws, some more than 100 years old, sought to protect agency independence by requiring the president to identify a cause like negligence before firing the leaders. And the court also struck down those provisions as unconstitutional limits on presidential power. The decision did give the president the ability to reshape agencies Congress created to operate independently of the executive branch. And so it goes. So Lisa Cook still has her job. And the other big thing, of course, was birthright citizenship, which, although the court was somewhat split on that, they did uphold that. It is in our Constitution. So also, the Voting Rights Act had been hollowed out. It was the crown jewel of the civil rights movement. The 1965 federal law that finally opened the ballot box to black Americans and other minorities and eventually led to the election of thousands of black office holders across the country. But since 2013, the court has systematically and severely cut back the ability of minority voters to invoke the law's protections to challenge election changes, saying that the need for those protections have largely passed. So they kind of just basically we're all going back to pre-1960 as far as those laws are in place. And, of course, they also allowed the Department of Homeland Security to end deportation protections for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans and Haitians and to employ a very restrictive policy limiting the number of people seeking asylum each day at the southern border. They also have allowed the border officers wider latitude in cases of green card holders accused of crimes. In a case that started during the Obama administration, in a birthright citizenship case, of course, Trump wanted that to be done away with, and the court did uphold the 14th Amendment, and that would permit denying citizenship to children born in parents who are in the country illegally or temporarily. What we've got to look at here, though, ladies and gentlemen, as I discuss this a little bit in more detail, it seems to be a big hot pocket. And the argument goes both ways about, people saying, well, women get pregnant from other countries, then they fly over here, and then they give a birth to a baby, and it's automatically a U.S. citizen. And then, of course, they just overpopulate with that, and so on and so forth. But the Constitution is very clear that if a child is born here in the U.S., they become a U.S. citizen. People say, well, there's a lot of illegals coming here doing that, and other countries have laws in effect. I've heard many different arguments about that. It's just like if some countries, if we're over there and an American citizen gives birth to a child, there are some countries that say, well, that baby is a citizen of that country. An example, say a child, let's say somebody's over in the military and they give birth. There are some countries that would allow dual citizenship. Italy is one of them. If once a child reaches 18 years of age, they could apply for dual citizenship because they were born in that country. They could become an Italian. I'm just giving you examples, folks, about how this law works. True, it can be abused. I fully understand that. But for many people who are here legally and they're immigrants and they give birth to a child and becomes a U.S. citizen. I think that's kind of a cool deal. So you got to look at this from both ways. And I understand the other argument on the other side of the fence here, but like I said, it's a case of, other countries have these laws in effect, and then we have this here. But the big thorn in my side is how Trump applies a lot of racial overtones, and because of his words and actions. And even the Supreme Court kind of got onto this. Critics called it insane washing. In the last week's decision, stripping protections from Haitian migrants, Justices Samuel Alito and Elena Kagan sparred over the role of race in Trump's statements, depicting Haitians as poisoning our blood and amplifying very false rumors of them eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio. That never happened, but you still got these redneck MAGA people out there saying, yeah, I did, man, those Haitians are eating animals, and by God, they got to get the hell out of here, those sons of, and it's ridiculous because they don't use any critical thinking skills. So, and these two Supreme Court justices, one of them just said, well, that's his freedom of speech. He can say that. And, and none of them cited the statements by either the president or the secretary, they said it was over racial. Alito wrote that contending they could have neutral exploitations and explanations. Kagan countered the statements fairly shouted in the racial overtones and overtones alike that race entered into the president's resolve to remove Haitians from this country. And that's very, very true. Some other things that came on gun rights got a modest boost on backing by the Second Amendment in a pair of rulings when it found that people can't be barred from owning firearms just because they regularly use marijuana. Gotta agree with that one. Like I said, if I see something that I'm not totally against everything that the Republican Party has done, I'm about 99% of them, but on this particular one, I have to totally agree. A lot of people today have found that THC and using it for municipal purposes, using it for purposes of pain and things like that. A lot of veterans use it. And of course, here in Florida, you can get a marijuana card for medical reasons. So having said all that, just because you're using it, that doesn't mean that you can't own a firearm. And I have to agree with that one. So. And of course, they also ruled on a law in Hawaii as well in relationships to firearms. Marijuana is becoming more and more of a mainstream drug that people are using for pain and other purposes of muscle aches and things like that. And a lot of veterans using it to help to control their post-traumatic stress disorder. It goes on and on. So, basically this Trump got a lot of his stuff and he did not get a lot of his stuff. So the Supreme Court's done now for the year here on this one, so we can kind of basically move on. Now, Trump referred to a bipartisan housing bill as a yawn this past Monday. You remember the housing bill? I talked about it on my last podcast. It would have really, really helped a lot of new homeowners, a lot of people who have a lot of increasing on their rent. It was a great bill. Of course, now Trump's holding Congress hostage because he wants to get his SAVE Act passed through, and they've tried several attempts to bury that into other bills. And of course, the Senate's not biting on it. But this bill that was supposed to pass. Even Caroline Leavitt basically stated that, boy, this bill's great, and Trump's, he's really going to go to work for you on that one. She basically said, that they even had this all set up for him to sign it. And Caroline Leavitt was just all, wow, look at this, a promise, is kept, is done by Trump, and he's going to get this all done, for you. And guess what? It didn't happen. And Donald Trump has basically called this bill a yawn. Watch this. Bill, Mr. President,
I don't know. I think it's so unimportant by compared to the Save America Act. I think the Save America Act is exactly what it says. It's saving America from crooked elections. And the housing bill is a bill that can get approved. They worked on it long and hard. It's very bipartisan. That means the Democrats like it. I think it's maybe even, it's probably maybe more that way they're getting things that I wouldn't necessarily agree to. Nobody knows more than housing in the history of the presidency. Nobody did well like me in housing. I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money with housing. But when I look at that bill, it's a bill. But when I look at the Save America Act, it's about saving America. And I'd like to have the Save America Act added on. That's probably not going to happen because we have 4 Republican senators, maybe 5, that just won't vote for it. It's crazy. Somebody, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Nobody's done more for Alaska than me. She's Trump deranged. What can I tell you?
And as you just saw that clip, so he says, when I look at this bill, it's a bill. When I look at the Save America Act, it's about saving America. So this bill is basically a yawn. I compare it to the Save America Act. Just about everything is a big yawn. He conceded, however, the bill probably is not going to happen because we have 4 Republican senators and maybe 5 that just won't vote for it. Trump goes on and on and on and rattles on and goes off topic all the time. I'm sorry, but there is something wrong with this guy. And you can say what you want to say, but you can tell by his speech and some of his slurring and the way he just rambles on, there is something medically going on with this guy. But and of course Caroline Leavitt, she's Trump's little lapdog. She just basically says whatever that he tells her to say in her little press releases, and it never happened. So another case of where Trump's cabinet, including his press secretaries, they're never on the same page, and when they are, Trump does whatever he wants to do, and if he wants to go off of what's going on, he will do it. So, yeah. Now let's move on to the other little thing that has become kind of a thorn in Trump's side, and that is a Great American State Fair, which was a total flop. Much of it was on technical issues, and much of it was on the weather. Neither one of those cooperated for poor Donald Trump. And yeah, it's kind of sad, but that's what happened. So, the Great American State Fair, which nobody showed up, and it was a disaster. And the event has been plagued by sparse attendance, extreme weather, equipment failures, and mass cancellations, and extremely overpriced food. I mean, $12 for a can of beer, and other products were costing well over $20. Yeah. And it just a lot of empty spaces. And of course, even Fox News, was trying to do a live cast from it, and the camera got caught panning in the background, and nobody there, empty chairs. And many states didn't even show up for the thing. And that's because they were told to pay their own way. States that did show up, they had to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars, plus they had to staff everything with their own people. They had to pay to get them there. And also, this was supposed to be a bipartisan celebration of America's 250th anniversary birthday, and Trump has turned it into his own little grandstand. Everything has to be about Donald Trump. It can't be about the country that he is the president of. It has to be about him, and people were getting frickin' pissed off about it. So therefore, they said, we're not coming, you dudes, keep the thing neutral. That's all the American people want, about celebrating their country, not celebrating Donald Trump. But the guy's ego just won't let him do that. So, yeah, the Great American State Fair basically has flopped. And with those power outages, ice cream was melting, and the grounds got flooded. And it's just been kind of a mess. Bands canceled, many bands canceled, even Martina McBride and Bret Michaels canceled, and a lot of the bands that were supposed to be there because of power outages and things, they didn't get there either. So even a pancake eating competition was supposed to be held there because of the heat wave. They had to cancel that, and it's just basically humiliation for Trump. So kind of interesting. So some other things that have been going on is Trump's financial statements that just have come out. As we look at this, so let's take a brief look at his financial statement. So Donald Trump said he has earned more than $635 million from a license agreement with a cryptocurrency group specializing in meme coins bearing his name last year, an amount that has pushed his total crypto holdings to past $1 billion, according to a lengthy financial disclosure that he released this past Thursday. Now, the figures from 2025, the first year of Trump's second term, were disclosed to the United States Government Ethics Committee in a 927-page document. That is correct. I said that correctly, 927 pages. So that is a hell of a lot more than previous president. President Barack Obama's final disclosure form was 8 pages. Joe Biden's was 11 pages. Vice President J.D. Vance's form for last year was 17 pages. Trump's meme coin earnings came on top of more than $236 million worth of additional crypto sales and an additional sale of equity worth more than $65 million associated with Trump family crypto venture, World Liberty Financial. So a recent letter from a Senate Democrat said a company called Slide Celebration Cards, which is registered in Wyoming, said that is now a major crypto hub because Wyoming has very, very lenient laws when it comes to cryptocurrency. So neither the president nor his family said they were ever engaged with this or will ever be engaged, but other things have showed otherwise. Of course, everybody's saying this is all a conflict of interest. Trump has made billions since he has become a president. And again, he says he has nothing to do with it. And so, and here's what he said. Watch this clip.
Last year, what message does this send to average Americans, especially those who may be struggling right now financially?
I don't get involved in my personal. We have funds that run my money.
But you are benefiting. I mean, we're talking
well, I've made a lot of money before I became president. And they invest my money, and I don't talk to them. I don't even speak to them. So I have many people, I don't know what they call it, closed accounts or something. You put your money in, and that's it. I don't talk to them. They're big institutions, and they run it. But yeah, I've had a great career. In business, I've had a great career.
Concerns about conflict of interest?
I don't know if I've had a better career in politics or business, but I had a great career in business. And, you saw the cash, and you report the different things. And what they do is we gave it, I think it's called the blind account, but they take it. And I never speak to any of the people that run the money, but they're at big institutions and they invest in whatever they invest.
But to critics who say you're profiting off the presidency, Mr.
Well, you know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting. If you have a 401k, how's your 401k done? It's about up 85%. Thank you, President Trump. So we're all profiting. I'm profiting because I have a lot of money and a lot of cash, and I give it to institutions. I don't know if they know what they're doing or not, but they buy a vast array of things.
So one of Trump's statements have said that President Trump has proudly made the United States the crypto capital of the world through executive action supporting legislation like the Genius Act and other common sense policies to drive innovation and economic opportunity for all Americans. Unlike past presidents, Trump did not divest his assets or place them in a blind trust before taking office. Now, the Trump Organization has said that the assets are managed by third-party financial institutions with trades executed through automated technology, and Trump has nothing to do with that. And when he says, Trump said his fingers are basically not in anything. However, many other people and his critics says they are in everything. There is many pay to play things going on with the White House. And, even with the $14 million jet that was gifted to Trump by Qatar, that was also has come up in the news. And many people are even calling that illegal. And speaking of the president's jet, Now, transparency and scrutiny watchdogs and critics frequently point to the convoluted nature of these reports as a source of concern because personal financial disclosures only list assets and incomes in broad ranges rather than exact profits. The exact valuation of his net worth and revenue is very difficult to track because of that Bitcoin operation. And, Trump, again, he's just like, I don't know what's going on. I have people that do this stuff. So I can't, follow everything. So there you go. So, basically, Trump is totally innocent of everything and anything that has gone on. He's got billions of dollars, and he has made all that since his second term of president. His family is heavily invested in the Middle East on projects. And Trump, getting gifted this jet. I want to do a quick follow-up on this jet, too. Now, Trump says that, when he gets out of office, that it's going to go to his presidential library. Well, the jet is now government property, and by federal laws, if Trump wants to take that jet home with him to Florida, he has to buy it back from the U.S. government because we have invested billions of dollars in that jet to be retrofitted for security reasons. And, of course, it now belongs to the United States Air Force. It becomes Air Force One. So a lot of our tax dollars, and they're also not even done with that jet. They've got it to where it was safe to fly and all that stuff, but they still have to do a lot of fine tuning with that jet. So, yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it looks great, but it's still a gift from the Middle East, from another country. It's a jet that Trump accepted, and there about $1.3 billion was spent on retrofitting. That was your tax dollars, that jet. And so, again, if he does want to take it home, he's got to buy it. And, of course, he's now got money to buy it if he wants to. So, yeah. Unbelievable. All right, moving on with other news. So, Acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Ken Cianelli attacked a CNN host on air after she fact-checked him about before closing his laptop. In the interview, he said, "Boy, you're a left-wing hack." Yeah, watch this.
Polling due potentially a constitutional amendment that the American people, in terms of polling, the American people, in terms of polling, do overwhelmingly support birthright citizenship as it stands now. Ken Cuccinelli, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you.
Boy, you are a left-wing hack.
So, yeah, he called her a left-wing hack. Now, see, the Republicans love to call anybody that doesn't agree with them left-wing hacks. They all believe that our way is the right way and the highway. If you don't want to get on board, the hell with you. And that is so sad. The Republicans become so damn defensive anytime anybody tries to counteract anything they say. And I've said on this podcast many, many times, I'll say it again for those of you who may be new to my podcast. I was a Republican for 52 years of my life. Not ashamed to say it. I was. Well, maybe I'm kind of ashamed to say it in today's world that we now live in. But, and I voted for Trump on his very first term, not knowing what kind of guy he was going to be. And, of course, by the time he was in office, by a year, I changed my party affiliation. I couldn't put up with his bullshit. I was just, I'm sorry. And the way he has become so racially prejudiced against anybody else except him. He's turned this country into a white privilege, big corporation U.S. and anybody else that's not wealthy and anybody else that doesn't have white skin, you can go to hell. That's basically his attitude. And the way we're rounding up these immigrants, that's another thing that's kind of upsets me. And I'm going to get on that in my closing comments here. But this, this thing about what this guy called her, that was uncalled for. Just because somebody disagrees with you, you don't have to be a left-wing hack. And that's basically what it came down to. And to me, that breaks my heart. So, moving on to some other news. The Democratic Socialists are now starting to make some headway, as we're well aware of. And in Colorado, this young lady is going to be going to Washington, D.C. probably. And her name is Mala Kuros. And Kuros is she's a new political newcomer, and she is part of the Democratic Socialist Party. And she has made some great gains, and she's only 29 years old, kind of starting off like AOC did. And she's going to be the first Gen Z woman elected to Congress after defeating 15-term incumbent Democrat Diana DeGette in the primary race for Colorado's 1st congressional district. Now, according to the race calls, she has won, and Colorado has been turning more and more blue, and she makes up most of the Denver's district. And she is a PhD student and a lawyer, and is she would replace DeGette, who's 68, and she's held that office since 1997, and that was the same year that Kuros was born. It's an upset that comes amid a broader inter-party fight taking place among Democrats as prominent incumbents face pressure to pass the baton to a slate of more left-leaning and younger candidates pledging to reject longtime political norms and practices. Kuros is an Ethiopian immigrant, is part of that movement, backing economic populist policies, including universal health care and child care, and more politically polarizing issues like abolishing immigration and customs enforcement and ending U.S. military aid to Israel. She's also swore off money from corporate places like PACs and pro-Israel lobbying groups, and heavily criticized DeGette's history of accepting campaign donations from defense contractors as well as energy and pharmaceutical company. She's going to be joining Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, AOC, along with New York City Mayor Madami. Denver voters of all ages and of all races and of all religions have sent a clear message. We will not wait, Kuros said in her victory speech. She added, Denver, the future is being written right now. Nothing is set in stone. We won tonight, but this is about something so much bigger than this moment. And then one moment, this is a movement. And we are getting started, she said. So, congratulations to her. And I want to kind of get into something here because this kind of pisses me off. Donald Trump calls all these Democratic socialists, the term that they use, communists. They're out there to destroy the country. They're no good. The DSA, or the Democratic Socialists of America, movement is just like the Republicans' Tea Party movement. You remember that? Oh, no, that's different. I always get that from the Republicans. Oh, that's different. Everything's different when it comes to them. So, true, they are creating a rift. Mainstream, middle-of-the-road Democrats don't like them, but they're going to have to work with them. And the things that Democratic socialists like Madami, like AOC, and what they want, Bernie Sanders, is to make sure that big corporations pay their fair share, which they don't on the Republicans. They give them all the damn tax breaks that they can give them. The Republicans think that everybody who needs assistance is worthless, that welfare recipients, people that need food stamps and stuff, who want free medical care, they can go to hell, pay your fair share, where a lot of them don't have the ability or the financial means or the health means to do that. And these Democratic socialists are saying, we need to help everybody. If we have made it and have some extra money, let's help those people out. And that goes back to the plaque on Statue of Liberty, which, again, I'll be talking about here in just a moment. So, you may not agree with everything but the DSA movement does. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But that's what it's about. And these are mostly young people. And the old farts in their three-piece suits and stuff, it's time for them to pass the baton on to younger people, and that's what's going on. We are getting more and more people who are in their late 20s to early 30s getting involved in politics, and good for them. All these old farts in their 60s and 70s that walk around all pompous and everything, it's time for them to set aside. These young people, it's their future, it's their country. We're all going to be dead and gone by the time these people get into where they need to be. And again, it's their just as much as their right to run for political office as it is for a 34-count convicted felon to be a president of the United States. So what the hell is the difference there? You know, let these people come up. I'm getting very sick and tired of everybody saying my way or the highway, and so are the young people. And as far as the thing with Israel go, and the people who support Israel, maybe, just maybe, the people of Israel, just like the people of Palestine, there are many people there who do not agree with, who's running things. And that's what's upsetting these young people, is the war in Israel. Bibi is destroying that country with his aggressive military tactics. And Bibi has tried to buy everybody in Congress with IPAC and putting millions and thousands of dollars in their pockets. And you can look that up to see how much money our congressional representatives have been bought off by Bibi with IPAC. You know, he figures if I can put $1 million in your pocket, you're going to vote to support Israel and buy military stuff for us. And way to go, buddy. Blow a pat on your shoulders. So people like this woman here and AOC and Bernie, they have not accepted one red cent from IPAC. And so they can keep their conscience clear. And, when they go to vote, they vote their heart and not what somebody tells them to do with money in their pocket. That's basically why people like to go to Congress. They can get rich very, very quickly by lobbyist groups like IPAC, and why they don't want to give up their seat, because they become millionaires by just sitting in Congress. Congressional representatives and senators and representatives don't have to pay one damn cent for health care. Once they've been in there 2 years, they get it for life. Do we get free health care for life? Hell no. But they're special, see? I'm in Congress, so I can get what I want. Do we have to fill up our tanks every day for gas? Yes, we do. Do congressional staffs don't? No, they get to drive. They're driven around because of security reasons. They don't have to buy anything for fuel. You don't get it, do you, folks? The blue-collar worker, the citizens that sit here, we're getting screwed. But when they get in Congress, they get anything and everything they want. They don't give a crap. Their whole attitude changes once they get in office. Once they smell that money, once they get into office, things change with them, and they try to keep it hush hush, but it does happen. So you gotta understand that, and that's what these young and up and coming people do. I celebrate them for having the to get in there and do their job. So good for them. Again, the Democrats don't really love what the DSA does. But again, the Republicans, they never loved what the Tea Party movement did when they got in there and they were creating some rift. They're all going to come together. They are. And, the Republicans say, well, if these people get in here, it's just going to make things easier for us here in the Republican Party. No, it's not. You wait and see. They can say that all they want, but behind the scenes, they're scared as shit of what's going on. And some other things going on there. Getting back to the inaugural freedom of the country's 250th anniversary celebrations that we're having. One other thing that Donald Trump's trying to do, which is to me is just funny as hell, is he wants to have the Freedom 250 Grand Prix, and he's going to have it. Again, he has completely taken away all the money from the Department of Interior and the Park Service to pay for his little pet projects. He has totally drained that, and people are seeing this at the national parks with services that have been totally decreased and staffing has been totally decreased. And again, Congress is starting to investigate a lot of this because he has funneled money from one thing to others. And trying to be sneaky about it so he could get these projects done. He's going to have a Grand Prix, and it's going to take place on the streets of Washington, D.C., of all places. Are you ready to see cars run around Washington, D.C. at over 120 miles per hour? And it's going to go around the National Mall. The historic NTT IndyCar Series race, part of the nation's 250th anniversary celebration, is scheduled for the weekend of August 21st and 23rd, 2026, with the main race on Sunday, August 23rd. The race will not directly loop around Washington Monument itself, but it will be set on major landmarks. The course, a 1.7-mile, 7-turn temporary street circuit, utilizes major thoroughfares. You know, they're going to block off the streets, including stretches of Pennsylvania Avenue and Independence Avenue. The sites, while hitting speeds of 180 miles an hour, drivers will pass by major landmarks, including the White House, the National Archives, the U.S. Capitol, and the Washington Monument. Viewing and admission will be free for you to attend if you want to be there and watch that circus. So, this is all great. It's in August. The streets are going to be blocked off. People trying to get to work, to get to their jobs, they're not going to be able to do so because the streets will be blocked off for these cars running around at 180 miles an hour. Race cars belong on racetracks, not running around our nation capital. But again, Donald Trump is trying to cater to his blue-collar MAGA base, just like he tried to do with the state fair that went nowhere, just like he's trying to do with these people with these bands and stuff that went nowhere. So now you've got this Indy race. And again, it's supposed to be bipartisan, but it's not. And he's probably got Budweiser, which has turned 180 degrees around to kiss his hind end, probably sponsoring this too. And people watching this can probably have vendors out there, again, to pay $12 for a freaking can of beer while you're going, yeah, look at those cars go, man, ain't that cool? I just cannot believe this crap, but that's what I'm going to be anxious to see how this goes down. So, going to be amazing, isn't it? All right, let's talk about Mitch McConnell, the mysterious Mitch McConnell. Where in the world is he? Is he even alive? So, yeah, Mitch has, the 911 calls were released. It is obvious Mitch McConnell was found unconscious and he had a heart attack. And he has been in the hospital now for 9 days with his staff saying he's still in communication with people and he's doing bills and stuff. I call bullshit on that. And most of the media also has called bullshit on that. It's obvious he's incapacitated. It's obvious he can't vote. But again, they are trying to keep him active and alive, if he is still alive. I mean, I don't wish misfortune at all on his family. But the thing of it, they're doing this because of the slim majority in the U.S. Senate. The other thing about the state of Kentucky, it has a Democratic governor. And by Kentucky law, if this guy is in fact gone, he can appoint a temporary Democratic senator to replace him. Most of Kentucky is Republican controlled, but that law still exists, and that's what's really going on here. If in fact the guy has passed, they can put the governor can make an appointment of somebody to replace him until elections are held, and it will be a Democrat. That's what's unique about this. The Republicans know that. So therefore, Mitch McConnell is alive and doing well and recuperating until who knows when. It's going to come out sooner or later. They can't keep up this facade forever and ever and ever. So be interesting to see what happens there. But poor Mitch. I mean, I hope he recovers. I don't wish ill will on anybody. I really don't. But this thing has turned into quite a little conspiracy theory, if you want to use that term. The media has been totally kept away from the hospital where he is supposedly at. They have his security detail out there watching. I don't know what they're watching, but they're there to make a show, to make him maybe look like he's still fine and alive. But I don't know how long they can keep this up. I mean, if Mitch McConnell is recovering, great, but tell the American people he's recovering. Don't go on there and keep this little thing about with his staff just putting out total lies, because people are not stupid. But, you know, they think that hey, he's okay. He's still communicating. I bet if you to talk to people that say I haven't heard anything from Mitch McConnell. I don't know what they're talking about, but they're keeping them away too. Keep up with the lies. It's so sad that our country has turned into a worldwide base of lies and cheating and stealing and taking and doing whatever because people are so damn greedy, and our country now has turned into a whirlwind of lies and bickering and prejudice and everything else. So, and speaking of that, right here in the good old state of Florida, where I do this podcast from, our state and our Congress here, and I'm talking about our state representatives. So now dreamers can no longer go to public educational systems like our state university and colleges and get an education unless they can prove that they're U.S. citizens. So a lot of these dreamers that have been here and trying to better themselves and get a higher class of education, they're no longer going to be allowed to go to school here unless they can prove that they're U.S. citizens. So now U.S. citizens, you're done, buddy. Get the hell out. So that has been done. And very, very sad that we have come up to that. So, yeah. And in other news that has been going on, if you haven't been following and like, well, gee, I haven't heard about ICE. Are they still busy? Absolutely. ICE is now going down to rural areas to avoid media, and they are still rounding up at least 10,000 immigrants a week. And when I say 10,000 immigrants a week, that number is way, way up than what it was previously was. What they're doing is they're staying out of cities because of the media. So if they're going more rural, they can still do their job, and the press is not following them around, and they can get things done. Right here in Florida, the county right north of me, Brevard County, Sheriff Wayne Ivey has been bragging about all the illegal immigrants that they have been rounding up and deporting. Once again, these are not criminals. They are not felons. They're not murderers. They're not rapists. They're not drug dealers. They're just simple immigrants who have been working doing lawn care or on, farms here, picking oranges and fruits, and same, just like in Idaho, they're going to deport all these people, and there's going to be nobody to work to do these jobs. And you think any of these white privileged people are going to step up and say, I'll do that job for $15 an hour. No problem here, but I'll do that. No, they won't. They're going to say, I'm sorry, I'm too good for that. I can't do that. Get somebody else. Who? We got rid of all of them, so. But anyway, yeah, they're all boasting, really happy about picking up 10,000 immigrants a week and deporting them. Of course, Alligator Alcatraz, which cost you, the U.S. taxpayers, millions and billions of dollars, they've shut that down. One of Ron DeSantis' little jokes that have totally came to kick him in the butt and embarrass him. They shut that down. But you got ICE doing all this. Now, the reason I'm talking about ICE, in most recent news, Sister Letty, as she has been called, who was a Catholic, a nun from Nigeria, was released from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody on June 28th, hours after being detained while walking in her habit to Massachusetts to Our Lady of the Sorrows Church in McAllen, Texas. Following the arrest, the Catholic Diocese of Brownsville and local parishioners raised alarms. Federal lawmakers representing South Texas, including Representative Monica de la Cruz and Representative Henry Sawyer, intervened with the Department of Homeland Security to get her release. She had no business being arrested in the first place. Bishop Daniel E. Flores of Brownsville welcomed her release, but calling it widely disturbing that a religious sister would be detained and handcuffed while peacefully walking to church. Yeah, that's what it's come to, folks. You got a lot of these overzealous ICE agents. Again, you can look this up. I am not making this crap up. They have been so badly recruiting ICE agents that and getting them out on the streets and throwing a gun and a badge on them. That many of these ICE agents, they don't even have a high school education. They have absolutely hardly any training. They have no background in law enforcement. They run them right through, fast track them and get them out on the roads to start arresting anybody. That's their orders. Anybody that's got brown skin or looks funny, check them out, man. And if they say they're an American citizens, don't believe them. Make sure that you check things here and find out if it's really true. And again, the whole basis of this thing was supposed to be if they're, violent criminals, drug dealers, whatever Trump was calling them. He's lumped them all in. They're all drug dealers. They're all violent criminals. They're all rapists. They're all out there to get you. And in this case, a nun. What was wrong with her? How is she an illegal immigrant? How was she? And she wasn't. So they, finally somebody had some sympathy and stepped in and got her out, and that's very, very good. But her and what happened in Minnesota with the two murders, that just kind of goes to show you, what's going on here. And of course, Congress just passed billions more for these ICE agents. Like I said, it's kind of sad what we have turned into. And I'm going to wrap up this podcast as we celebrate our 250th anniversary. I want you to look at this plaque that is at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty that Lady Liberty holds, that she has been holding for the many, many, many years, that the Statue of Liberty, which was a gift from France to us at Ellis Island, where many immigrants have come across the oceans to find a new life here in the U.S. Do you see what that says? I don't have to read it for you. I want you to look at that and read that. And as you read that, can you actually sit back in your chair in the comfort of your home and say, yep, we're sure doing that, aren't we? We are getting rid of the tired. We're getting rid of the poor. We are deporting them and shipping their butts out. We don't want birthright citizenship. We don't want those illegals here. The sad thing about it is even those who try to say, oh, gee, my green card expired, or I need to go apply for a U.S. citizenship. For the people who literally from all their heart even try to do it, as soon as they walk into that courtroom, you've got ICE agents waiting there to pick them up and get them the hell out, because our Gestapo people got to go out there and take care of that. And that's what's wrong. If you stop and think about it, each and every one of us are immigrants. Our, parents, grandparents, if you look down your line of where you from, everybody is an immigrant. If you're a Native American, your grandfather's grandfather's grandfather was a Native American. If you're here, you either came here from Germany, from Denmark, from Sweden, from England, I can pick any country. We are all immigrants, but we don't ever think about that. All we think about, I am a white privileged U.S. American citizen, and to hell with everybody else. Get out, So, yeah, I'm a little upset because we all stop to think about where we're from. And as we celebrate the 200th anniversary of this nation and our country, we all stop and think about, yes, you're a U.S. citizen, and thank God that you are. Yes, we still have a great country here, but we all came from immigrants. If you go back and look at it. So as we sit here and condemn immigrants that are trying to make a life here for themselves, and they do the work that none of us want to lift our hands to do. We don't want to get our hands dirty, but they do, because they're trying to put food on their table for their families. And because they may have not learned perfect English, we still condemn them. Speak English or get the hell out. I don't know how many times I've heard that. You know, we go to a different country. If you go on vacation to Italy, do you speak perfect Italian? No, you don't. If you go to Mexico, do you speak perfect Spanish? No, you don't. But, you know, these people here, they keep some of their native language because it's their culture. It's important to them, so they can speak to their families, to their grandparents that still live here. You've got grandparents who are perfect, U.S. citizens, but they still choose to speak Spanish. You know, that's their culture. That's what they do. I see a lot of Native Americans. I grew up in Wyoming on the Wind River Indian Reservation that's still speaking their native tongue to their family members and stuff. I don't never condemn that. That's their culture. What the hell's wrong with you people? You know, so I'll get off my soapbox, and I do wish our country thank God for a 250th anniversary. Glad to be an American, glad to be here. I hope our country can somehow pull together and stop the bickering and fighting amongst ourselves and learn to work as in peace and harmony and go on for another 250 years. But in the meantime, you know, really stop and think about things. You know, what are you really, really upset about? Try to get the stuff set aside and come together. There's just, right now, we've got a country that wants to create division. They want everybody to hate everybody else. You know, they love it. They get off on it. They want nothing but money, more money in my pocket, and that's it. And however we get it, you know, we'll take it however we can. So, happy birthday, USA, for another 250th year. Until then, this is Roy Garten. You really try to have a good week. Until next time, take care.